Hey Ronnie, I hope you're doing well. So I wanted to use this video to give you kind of a preview of chapter 7 of Dorian Gray. I also saw that it looks like you might need a little bit more time with the assignments previously. So if you do need extra time, feel free to go to those assignments first and prioritize those before going to this one. That's totally fine. You can just go at your own pace. But if you also want other resources to help with I guess going through the readings more clearly, I did find someone online that does a read aloud and an analysis. So he kind of like talks to the text while he's reading the chapter, kind of similar to what I do when I pick certain significant quotes, but he actually goes throughout the entirety with you. So if you'd like that resource, I can certainly link it in the syllabus as well. But if you prefer to read alone, I completely understand. Um, but yeah, I'm just going to focus on what to expect of Chapter 7 in this video. So whenever you're ready to move on to Chapter 7, you can continue watching this. So in this Chapter 7, as you would have seen in Chapter 6, it kind of left off with Dorian explaining his love for Sybil to his friends Basil and Lord Henry. And so we're going to see the actual theater play. We're going to see Sybil perform in front of Dorian and his friends because he wants them to be there and witness who he fell in love with and why he fell in love with her. Now, again, we talked about, in the previous video, I believe, we talked about this idea of, does he really love Sybil for who she is, or does he idolize what she is when it comes to her role as a performer? Now, this is kind of interesting because this can also be a parallel to the idealization of Victorian society. Victorian society was oftentimes seen as the age of idealization of certain things, like how people believed moral people should act, how people believed women and men should act, women of men of higher society, married women, women who had children. What was the idealization of these tropes that Victorians had? So Dorian's idolization of Sybil as a performer might be a parallel indicating this criticism that Oscar Wilde had of Victorian society. So that's something to look out for. Another thing that you will see, so something sort of unexpected and suspenseful happens in this chapter. It's a very interesting chapter. You do see a change in Dorian. I'm not going to tell you what that change is, but you see a transformation in him. And so this is a very, very important chapter. So some things to look out for too is, how does Basil's views about his proposal, about Dorian's proposal to Sybil, kind of change? Because if you remember in chapter 6, he was kind of like, I don't know if this is right for Dorian. You know, he's kind of rushing into this marriage very quickly, and we haven't even met her. We don't know what she's like. So how does his perspective of that kind of change based on the fact that he truly does love Dorian? He sort of worships Dorian. So how does he feel about it differently in the beginning of this chapter? So it's told to you at the very beginning of this chapter. And then I believe the last thing I want you to look out for is, how is Sybil herself a sensualist? Now, this might throw you off a little bit because I don't think that we've quite seen that in Sybil the same way that we see that in Lord Henry. We know that Lord Henry is a sensualist. We know he's the main sensualist in this entire story, aside from Dorian. But if you remember in the previous chapters, we also saw Sybil talking to her brother about her future and how she wants to go about her future now that she has Prince Charming in the picture. So that's also going to relate to the suspenseful event that happens in this chapter, is look out for ways in which Sybil can be herself a sensualist in a certain way. And then another thing, I guess, lastly, is do you think that based on her decisions, do you think that she, it's kind of understandable what she has to do, given her misfortunes, right? She doesn't have a lot of money. She comes from a poor background. She's kind of being taken advantage of by the person who runs the theater. So because she's tied down to him financially, so she doesn't really have a way out until she meets Dorian. So do you think that she um, is sort of like just in her decision to do this, to rely on her marriage to Prince Charming, or do you think that she is just as superficial as the others? So yeah, I hope that helps, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be about chapter 7, analyzing it after you've read it. Alright, see you then.